Okay, right. So, second video of our 2025 exam prep. Today we're going to be focusing on memory. Quite a technical topic, really. Not students' favourite most of the time. But one that does come with its own kind of unique challenges. Now, I've got the specification up here. Memory is kind of split into two across pages. And then in the first half, you've got a lot of really technical models, multi-store model, working memory model. They're the tough ones. Long-term memory is pretty easy. You're not really going to be challenged too much on that. But yeah, typically tends to be quite hard. The latter half is the more interesting part of memory, in my opinion. But you've got your explanations for forgetting, and then two big topics on eyewitness testimony: one, what affects it, and one, what improves it. Now, fine. As with social influence, there aren't really any predictions of what is coming up this year, because everything has come up within the last 2 years. Now, what hasn't come up for 2 years, everything has come up within 3 years, sorry. What hasn't come up in the last 2 years is working memory model and improving eyewitness testimony. Now, those are two fairly big topics, but it's worth noting that last year, memory was the only topic in the paper that didn't get hit by a 16 marker. Social influence, attachment, and psychopathology all had their 16 markers, but memory didn't. The other thing that's worth pointing out as well is that they've spread the 16 markers, historically, they've spread the 16 markers in memory out quite a lot. So, multi-store models only had one, working memory models had one, forgettings had one, eyewitness testimonies had two. The only ones that have never been hit with a 16 marker are long-term memory, which is never going to happen. They are not going to hit you with a 16 marker in long-term memory. There's not enough to ask you about that, so don't worry about that. But a 16 marker in improving eyewitness testimony, I'm personally amazed they've never done a 646 essay on this so far. So that might be something to look out for. Now, of course, just because a topic hasn't got a 16 marker, whereas all the other topics has, it doesn't mean it's going to. But my point is, whilst we're not making predictions, I do think there's a relatively good chance a 16 marker will appear in memory this year. So, wait. Did 16 markers come up? Sorry, 16 marker didn't come up for social influence last year. It was 213, sorry. But like I said, anyway, I think 16 markers are likely going to come up for memory. Now, the real worry for me personally is that they hit you with a comparison question in memory. It's very easy to do. Comparing multi-store model to working memory model, you need to know some of the similarities and differences between those things. Now, like I say, memory is really technical. Multi-store model looks at memory overall, looking at multiple stores of memory. It focuses on sensory, short-term, long-term, etc., etc. Whereas working memory model is just a zooming in of short-term memory. I do think they could ask comparison questions. They are starting to do it a little bit more. This was one last year in long-term memory. Two types of long-term memory, semantic and episodic, outline two ways in which episodic memories are different from semantic memories. So you do need to be prepared to be able to identify similarities and differences with long-term memory and the two models of memory as well. Even to be honest, theories of forgetting, I do think they are going to ask some sort of comparison question. And if they don't ask it, you can still use it anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Now, like I said, my main worry is the level of technical knowledge students have going into this. So if you look on the spec, yes, they've got the models there, but there's a lot about the models that you will need to know in detail. And this is not the video going through that. I've got other videos on multi-store model, but we're talking about what is elaborative rehearsal, the articulatory process, the inner scribe, the visual cache. There's a lot that is not named on here. So the mistake that students often make with the with the models memory is they only learn it at a really, really basic, shallow level. And if you get hit by a 16 marker, strictly speaking, on, let's say, working memory, a 16 marker on working memory, yes, you got the 4 components: central executive, phonological loop, visuospatial sketchpad, episodic buffer. But you need to know those deeper recesses of each of this, particularly the slave systems as well. So yeah, that's one thing to note. The other thing I should say as well here is, and this is I think this is the main thing to be aware of for memory, you're going to need to know a lot of pieces of research. Small pieces of research. You'll notice there's not a named piece of research in memory, but you're going to need to know a piece of research for sensory register, for example. So Sperling or Walsh and Thompson. You're going to need to know a few pieces of research for short-term memory. Peterson and Peterson, Miller, Jacobs, right? There's honestly, there's loads for you to be able to pick from. And you're going to need to know them for long-term memory as well. Baric is the obvious one to go for, but Baric is the duration of long-term memory. You probably need to know one for the capacity of short-term memory as well. And it's honestly, it's the same for these 4 here. So do you know a piece of research? Less so for the episodic buffer, I think. I don't think you're going to get asked about research on the episodic buffer, so we'll just take it back to these 3. Do you know a piece of research for each of those 3? Now, chances are the name Baddeley will appear, but you need to know what, and this is where there's so much ground for confusion. You need to know what piece of research Baddeley did for the central executive, for the phonological loop, and for the visuospatial sketchpad. So that's going to take some revising, and there's probably something to be aware of, I think. Now, leading on from that, another worry to do with memory is this type of, and it won't take me long to find one, especially if I scroll down to eyewitness testimony, because they love asking them around there. These questions just here. Discuss research into. And now, like I say, this is where you're going to need to know these small pieces of research. So they have asked a lot of discussed research questions within memory. It seems to be one of their favourite go-tos. Discuss research into duration of memory. Again, that won't take that. That's not a very hard one to find. If I just show you, even though I've literally just said it out myself. There you go, top of the screen. Outline and evaluate research into duration of memory, or in memory. So duration, you're looking at time, not space. You're looking at time, so 18 to 30 seconds Peterson. My postman's just turned up. Sperling. Baric is duration, to be fair. What happens if I took that word out and changed it to capacity? You know, could you answer that question just there? Outline and evaluate research into capacity in memory. So you need to know a piece of research for sensory, short-term, long-term, a piece of research for duration, encoding, I guess, and capacity, duration, encoding, and then all of working memory model as well. You're going to need to know too. So yeah, like I said, discuss research is the main worry. You often get, as you can see, there's a lot here of scenarios. You got Toby, you got Aaron, you got Natasha, you got Caleb, Melissa, a woman, Xena, Kai and Neri, 2 police officers. So again, you're going to need to know AO2 here. They often go for, I don't know why that's the wrong AOs there. They often go for a 646 essay. That's discuss research. So again, that's something to be a bit aware of. So yeah, I think they're the main things to be aware of. They are the main things to be aware of. 16 marker quite likely, I think. Research methods does come up here, but I'm not too bothered about that. Comparison of models, comparison of stores, and then discuss research question as well. Just lastly as well, I think there's never been a 16 marker on improving the accuracy of eyewitness testimony. So we're talking about the cognitive interview here. You can talk about the enhanced cognitive interview, but it's not in the spec, so you're not going to get a specific question on the enhanced cognitive interview. As you can have a look through, they do like asking questions here. 8 markers, 6 markers, 3, 2, comes up quite a lot, but there has never been a 16 marker so far. I think there is enough scope for them to be able to give you this 16 marker. So you're talking about the 4 elements, bringing in the idea of counselling techniques, active listening, minimal distractions. Bring in the key bit about cognitive interview, by the way, is you bring in the psychology behind the cognitive interview. So why do they get you to say things backwards? Well, because it's harder to lie. It's harder to be dishonest if you're saying something backwards. You're forced into being more honest. Why do they get you to report everything? Well, because then you're going to have these small memories that might ping off other sort of more significant memories. And yes, it's going to lead to greater inaccuracy, but you can cross-reference that across multiple witnesses. Scenario would be quite easy to do here. As you can see, they've got a few scenarios. Danielle's walking down the high street, blah, blah, blah. And then evaluations, i.e., does it work? Does the cognitive interview work? Bring in Geiselman, bring in Fisher. Easy pieces of research that demonstrate that cognitive interview does actually work, but then counterpoint it by saying, well, actually the cognitive interview, whilst it does work, is actually quite expensive, and officers only get about 4 hours of training on the cognitive interview, which is nowhere near enough because of budgetary financial reasons. Anyway, so that's really it for memory, to be honest. A technical topic, really a topic of 2 halves. So make sure you know the models, in particular the deeper parts of it, right? If you don't know what a visual cache is or an inner scribe is, then you haven't revised enough, basically. And then you've got the latter parts as well. Expect 16 markers, expect AO2 involved here as well. They will give, I can almost guarantee you, they will give you some sort of scenario. Hope that's helpful. I will be releasing the attachment video quite soon.